Welcome to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County. I'm Reverend Bob Ringillian, minister of this congregation, speaking via video as I'm away for my son's wedding this same weekend. Thank you for being here on this Halloween weekend, on this fall day. Family, friends, fellow travelers on this path, we all gather in this space knowing that we're drawn here today because Susan, or Susu, or River, and we shared life. We've come together from different places. We're at different stages in our journey through life, and our paths are varied. We look at life in different ways. One thing we have in common. At one point or another, and to some degree or other, our lives have crossed paths with her, or that of her wife, Elizabeth. And so we have turned aside from our accustomed ways, and we've gathered here to give expression to the thoughts and the feelings that arise in us in this time of loss and completion. This service has been specially crafted to hear about 3 stages of her life. You may have already shared a thought or memory of Susan, River, when you RSVP'd, or perhaps you shared on slips of paper as you arrived. These will be shared later in the service. There are story and readings, songs with deep meaning, and a symbolic way to end our time together. Please remember, while death may bring grief, the depth of those sorrows comes from the flowing love that carved out deep places in our hearts. We're gathered here recognizing we all experience grief in our own ways. And today we have a chance to be together to celebrate the memory of a vital, loving person, one who we cannot replace from all the world's multitudes. Our Susan, our Susu, our River was not drab or humorless or requiring a service of particular weighty ecclesiastic flavor. This service honors her vitality, as do all of you. We acknowledge grief and the complexity of loss, what it stirs in each of us. A death can remind us of other loved ones we miss, echoes of connections and emotions from deep recesses of our being. This day reminds us that we each have stories of grief and loss, that we are not disconnected, and that's why coming together in community is so important at times like this. We react in various ways and on our own time schedule. And for some, this day is a marking, a permission to begin acknowledging to ourselves that she is gone. We know the mix of tears and laughter today is a healthy part of the love, and our memories as this celebration of life unfolds in this place and time. I invite our chalice lighters to come forward.
Hi everybody, I'm Bart Renner, and this is
Cadence.
And this is Gus down here, lighting the chalice.
And I'm Kate Renner.
And Cadence has our words for the chalice lighting.
During grief the light dims, but we gather and alight a flame to glow for each other. This flame shines even in our darkest moment. We are filled with so much light, by the way she loved us.
So thank you all for being here. I know the pieces of paper didn't happen, so I wanted to say mine out loud real quick. Susan taught me how to stay young at any age, and really, you know, my fondest memories of her are really at the age you see me in that photograph. So, sorry, I've been thinking about this for a couple weeks, but the most important thing that she taught me how to be was a smart ass. And so we did that with an endearing nickname to each other, which is Butthead. So we rarely used Ken and Susan, and we just used Butthead most of the time. But I chose the song I'm about to sing for a few reasons. Susan and I shared a lot of the same music, even though we didn't get to listen to it enough together. Sorry. I was lucky enough to be in Florence, Italy about 2 weeks ago, and I was walking around the square with some of my business associates a little later at night, and we came across this square, and this Italian street performing musician was playing Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, and you don't really hear that song played a lot. It's a slower song, and it was an Italian man trying to sing it, and he was doing a terrible job. And I played in a little band when I was younger, and I used to sing that song, so I actually started recording it. And to kind of fix it, I sang over top of it into my phone a little bit, and then I sent it to Elizabeth. And in that moment, I just kind of felt her. I felt her in that moment, and I kind of told Elizabeth, I think at that time of night, whatever time it was, your time, I was like, I'd like to try and sing this. Try being the operative word. So I appreciate your patience. This is not a beautiful rendition. But I love music, and I love sharing my emotion through music, and Susan did too. She really connected that way. So here's a go at it, I guess. So you think you can tell heaven from hell, blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rain, a smile from a veil? Do you think you can tell? And did they get you to trade your heroes for ghosts, hot ashes for trees, hot air from a cool breeze, cold comfort from change? Did you exchange a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in a cage? How I wish you were here, 'cause we're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, coming over the same old ground. Have you found the same old fear? I wish you were here. Love you all. Thank you.
That was amazing. And Susan called me butthead so many times. Now I know that was a really good thing. Okay, so you all have shared some joyful memories with us here. And I'll share those with everybody today. And Kate will light a candle for each one of your joyful memories that you've shared with us here. So I was saying I was an altar boy growing up, so I got this. Okay. She gave a terrific sermon at UUTC several years ago. She taught me to put a little something in the collection, even though I pledge. It adds to the gift of giving. She was very authentic. Her sense of humor, she always had a funny comment or joke to say. I loved her smile. Susan was willing to be vulnerable and to share her life's challenges and her overcoming if it meant helping others to heal. What I remember about Susu is she always took care of me and loved me. Then we took care of her and loved her and went to her house. I adored Susan's dry sense of humor, which would pop out in subtle but definitely opinionated ways. Vouch for that. I loved how she was always calm and easy to talk to. I loved how her eyes would light up when there were children around. You could really tell how much she loved them. I loved when Susan caught me off guard with her witty humor. I was in a women's group with Susan. All right, well, I'm going to say it. She was a badass. She called us on her stuff. She always put it in very firm but loving way to encourage us to grow. And I'm thankful for her impact on my life. River was the best with kids. She knew exactly how to communicate with them and make them feel like special humans. I always saw her genuine childlike smile when she was interacting with my kids. As young teenagers, music and records were very important. Susan Freeman convinced our PE teachers to let her play Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. I loved how gentle she was. She was the absolute best stepmom a kid could ever ask for. She was the coolest, funniest aunt. We always couldn't wait to see her. She reminded me that it's okay to feel my feelings. I always had fun with Susu. She did everything she could to make me laugh and smile. Who buys a dozen donuts and only eats one? River. Yeah. Susan was compassionate. She was one of the first people to help me acknowledge my spiritual growth. Freeman was a hell of a softball player. I loved being her teammate. Susu provided me comfort and cared for our children as if they were her own. Susu was so kind and loving to our grandchildren. Many days, River and I sat beside the Davidson River with our mugs of hot coffee sharing our stories and letting the water carry away our worries. Susan could always make me laugh if I got too serious. We shared an apartment at Hilton Head for a year in the 70s. And that's what we have here, but we have just one more that Cadence wanted to read. And I'm glad she's reading it because I don't think I could get through it. But I do want to note that Susan, she taught me so much about parenting, about how to interact with myself, my own inner child, and our children. Susan wants us to feel good, but I know she wants us to feel however we feel, to feel our feelings and honor them. And she left us this wonderful note in a book that I've read about 100 times now called F is for Feelings, and I recommend this to everybody. So I'm glad we have this book. I'm glad we have this wonderful note that Cadence is about to read, but more than anything, I'm so happy we have Susan's wonderful example that we will never forget.
Cadence, please remember all of your feelings are valued and important. They will lead you to your truth. Trust them, feel them, without judgment. Your sadness, frustration, anger, contentment, happiness, and especially your amazing joy attacks. In your life, people will tell you it's important to learn and be smart. It is, but it is just as important. It is just more important to be happy. We love you, girl, and as always, strive to honor your feelings, whatever they are. Susu. And thanks for helping me remember to do the same.
Thank you.
I'm a little shorter. I'm Jane Hilliard, and River was a really dear friend, and I'm afraid that's all I can tell you right now. See me at the bonfire, and I can tell you more. I have the pleasure of reading this book, The Invisible String. You can see it up on the screen, and if you can see it okay, or you're welcome to come around in front and sit down here, any place that's the best spot. You can see it really well there, can't you? Okay. And I'm dedicating this reading to River, and also the book is dedicated to the children of the world and the magic of their strings. Liza and Jeremy, the twins, were asleep one calm and quiet night. Suddenly it began to rain very hard. Thunder rumbled until it got so loud that it woke them up. "Mommy, Mommy," they cried out as they ran to her. "Don't worry, you two. It's just the storm making all that noise. Go back to bed." "We want to stay close to you," said Jeremy. "We're scared." Mom said, "You know we're always together no matter what." "But how can we be together when you're out here and we're in bed?" Liza said. Mom held something right in front of them and said, "This is how." Rubbing their sleepy eyes, the twins came closer to see what Mom was holding. I was about your age when my mommy first told me about the invisible string. I don't see a string, said Jeremy. You don't need to see it, the invisible string. People who love each other are always connected by a very special string made of love. But if you can't see it, how do you even know it's there, said Liza. Even though you can't see it with your eyes, you can feel it with your heart and know that you are always connected to everyone you love. When you're at school and you miss me, your love travels all the way along the string until I feel it tug on my heart. And when you tug right back, we feel it in our hearts, said Jeremy. Does Jasper the cat have an invisible string? Liza asked. She sure does. And best friends like me and Lucy? Best friends too. How far can the string reach? Anywhere and everywhere, Mom said. Would it reach me even if I were a submarine captain deep in the ocean? Asked Jeremy. Yes, Mom said, even there. Or a mountain climber? Even there. A ballerina in France? Even there. A jungle explorer? Even there. How about an astronaut in outer space? Yes, even there. Then Jeremy quietly asked, can my string reach all the way to Uncle Brian in heaven? Yes, even there. Does the string go away when you're mad at us? Never, said Mom. Love is stronger than anger, and as long as love is in your heart, the string will always be there. Even when you get older and can't agree about things like what movie to see or who gets to ride in the front seat or what time to go to bed. Oh, that's right, Mom said. You two should be in bed. And with that, they all laughed as Mom chased the twins back to their beds. Within a few minutes, they were asleep, even though the storm was still making the same loud noises. As they slept, they started dreaming of all the invisible strings they have, and all the strings that their friends have, and their friends have, and their friends have, until everyone in the world was connected by invisible strings. And from deep inside, they now could clearly see no one is ever alone. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Vanessa Cowie, and gosh, I wish I had had more time with River. I was a newcomer when COVID arrived at this congregation, so I never got to know River in person very well, but I've been realizing as the day goes on that I know her because there's a little piece of her in Elizabeth, of course, and the Renners, in each of you. And I feel I'm getting to know her more and more every day. We've been sitting for a while. Let me tell you about a ritual that we have at this church if you are not one of our congregants. We usually begin, or early in our services, we take a moment to stand if you're willing and able, and just greet silently or with a word or two someone who's sitting close to you. Because we're united by our love for and our knowledge of River, but we may not know each other. So call it a stretch break or call it a greeting. Wait, this is River, chapter 1. For many of us, we'd only known Susan, River, Susu in recent years. Often at memorial services, we hear stories we'd never known, but that help us get a fuller perspective on the life of someone. Maybe those stories help us find a more complete perspective, and maybe we identify with aspects that intersect with our own experience. We honor the life of a loved one, River, Susan, Susu, in this ritual today. So here are a few glimpses from her early life, her childhood and young adulthood. Susan was born Friday, August 8, 1958. She grew up in a Catholic family. As a youngster and as she grew, she was known to love sports. We've heard this referenced earlier today. She loved basketball, softball. She loved to play football, too, with the boys when the girls in the neighborhood wanted to be cheerleaders. But even more, Susan lived and breathed golf. She played golf almost every day during the summers with her best friend, Michael. She would be a spectator at the Masters tournaments. She even worked during the tournaments a few times. Susan had spunk, in case you didn't know. She didn't like wearing dresses. In fact, when she was no longer attending Catholic school, she would leave the house in a dress that her mother had picked out, and then change into pants when she got to school. And as a young child, she never understood why she couldn't run around shirtless like the boys did. There were some big challenges in her childhood. Susan shared that trauma shaped her later years. And at age 13, she was full-on drinking. Susan enjoyed partying and having fun, which was common among her peers at that age. It, though, continued long past the time that most youngsters learned their lessons. At one point, she had an automobile accident while under the influence. Sadly, at what would have been potentially a turning point in her life in these early years, she was told at that point that she did not have an alcohol problem. That was unfortunate, but River took advantage of later chances later in life to turn herself around and address that issue. She went to college after high school for 1 year, but then decided to move to Hilton Head, where she worked in restaurants. She eventually made her way to Boston, where she continued to work in the food industry. And two key events happened for Susan during her early life in Boston. First, she came to realize she was gay. Her roommate at the time was convinced that Susan was gay, so she kissed her. Susan later told Elizabeth that the moment of the kiss was like everything finally made sense. After the kiss, Susan quipped, "I'm so gay." The second key event was that she became pregnant during a drinking blackout. She made the decision to give her daughter to a family, a decision that she felt was best for her daughter. And as I said at the beginning, it's important to hear the stories to honor the complete person. We've heard people who knew River well talk about how she shared of herself. Well, this is the whole, these are stories from the whole person. We laugh and we cry over these stories, and we need to know that we have friends at this time, and we need to know the strength of love. So please, join in as you're willing and able. Stand if you like, as we sing the hymn, "We Laugh, We Cry." The words will be on the screen. Please be seated. Elizabeth said of this reading by Mary Oliver from Why I Wake Early, Mindful, she said, that's spot on. So listen and see if you hear River. Every day I see or I hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It is what I was born for, to look over and over in joy and acclamation, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the commonplace, the very drab, the daily presentation. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made of grass. And seeing the trees in their splendor, I think River would be gathering that light too. Elizabeth shared with me that Susan gathered the light from all the times of trouble throughout her life. And she let it instruct her and then turned around and gave that light back to the people that she taught or just lived among. As we will learn in the next chapter of her story, we come now to a turning point in Susan's life. Around 30, Susan entered rehab for her addiction to alcohol. This turned out to be a start towards health and reset to her life. And this experience would set the stage for her relationships and also her future career. She met her wife, Sue, in rehab, and they would later marry and remain together for 12 years. After getting sober, she began a path to a career and purpose in society, more than just working jobs. After rehab, she finished her undergraduate degree in psychology at USC-Aiken and completed her master's in education at Augusta College. She really loved being a student. According to her coworkers and clients, she was well-liked. Her humor and self-deprecating style made her clients feel comfortable and willing to share and willing to work on their own stuff. Her life informed her work and her dedication to their success. Post-rehab, she participated in therapy off and on as a way to deal with childhood trauma and her problems in relationships, as well as staying on a path of recovery from substances. This time was marked by a huge amount of personal growth and a desire to be healthy in relationships. In solidarity with this new depth of awakening, we invite you to join in another hymn, Spirit of Life. Yeah, this one's a short one. This is a short one. Again, stand if you wish, or remain seated if you'd rather. Please be seated. And now, part 3 is Elizabeth's turn.
lavalier. Can you hear me? Is it on? It says it's on. Well, I can just use this one. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Yeah. Hi! So glad y'all could make it. Thank you, Vanessa, and everyone else in the program this far, the service. I really appreciate that. Wait, my papers are covered. Okay, here they are. I'll stay here. Well, wait a minute. Is it this one or this one? I don't know. I'll just stay here for now. I'm Elizabeth. And the first thing I'm going to do is take a picture of y'all, because I get this lovely perspective. Hi. Wave. Do something. Go. Woohoo! Hello. Hiya. Yeah. All right. Thank you. River and I would have celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary this month. The legal wedding ceremony was right here 9 years ago. Raise your hand if you were here for the service. Thank you. It was just right after church on a Sunday. I'm going to talk about the beginning now. Susan and I met via an online singles site called Yahoo Singles. It doesn't exist anymore. I lived in West Asheville, and she lived in Hendersonville. After lots of back and forth, doing like what I guess was like chatting via the Yahoo site, emailing, we maybe talked on the phone. We finally set up a date. And this was back in 2004, I think. So we were going to go to DuPont State Forest. Here, now remember, I lived in West Asheville, she lived in Hendersonville, and we met here in Transylvania County for our first date. Okay? So we're walking up Buck Forest Road, those of you that are familiar with DuPont Forest, and she is telling me everything about her life. Like everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And a lot of people, especially in psychology and therapy, would say, well, that was probably oversharing, boundary issues, right? But for me, I actually found it to be very refreshing. I loved her honesty and really her vulnerability to share a lot of things that weren't so pleasant to share about her life. And it didn't freak me out. It didn't scare me in any way. And really what I really was drawn to was her sense of humor. And that came out in sharing all of that other stuff. We made it to the bottom of Grassy Creek Falls. No one goes there, okay? That's not the signature waterfall in DuPont. I don't know why I planned it that way, but we were in the boulder in the middle of the river at the bottom of Grassy Creek Falls. And I don't know what happened, but I had this overwhelming desire to kiss her. But all of a sudden, down this embankment comes this bear. Well, it turned out it was just a black lab. But, oh, thank you. I have a scepter now. Well, it wasn't just any black lab. It was my next door neighbor back in Asheville. It was her dog, whose name was Bear, by the way. That's just a coinky dink. Anyway, and then the neighbor popped out of the rhododendron thicket. And I guess the moment passed. I didn't kiss her. And it's really a good thing, because when you hear what she did next. So over the course of a few months, we saw each other sporadically. Okay, so we really did not see each other a lot, but I finally got up the nerve to have her come over for dinner for the first time, and this would have been in February of 2005. And I remember I was making marinara, and she didn't show up. She ghosted me in modern, up-to-date terms. She ghosted me. She didn't email. She didn't say anything to me. Didn't say anything. Well, at the time, I was in the process of trying to adopt my daughter. So this is February of 2005, and my daughter Lizzie moved in June of 2005. So when she ghosted me, I didn't care. And I just said to myself, well, her loss. So I kind of feel, hey, oh, thank you. I got all sorts of treats. Thank you so much. So a year later, we reconnected, and this is the interesting part. We reconnected in a couple of different ways. You want to come on up here? All right. Okay, you want this? Oh, you want this? Okay, you take it. Thank you. Oh, okay, right. Addison gave that to me. Thank you. Anyway, we reconnected in two ways. First of all, I knew someone that was in rehab where she worked in Mill Spring. And I had written that person a letter. Hey, buddy, I'm having a hard enough time concentrating. So anyway, I wrote the person that was in rehab, and I was like, you might know somebody there. Her name begins with an S. Because, they read the letters, and I didn't want to get too personal. The other thing is that Susan has continued to be in therapy, and she was encouraged by her therapist to seek me out again, because she, in this year's span that I had not seen her, had gotten in a relationship that, of course, failed, and she was going to therapy for that. So she somehow got back in touch with me. I don't know if she still had my email, but she did email me. And as you can say, the rest is our story. So, of course, I forgave her. And, wow, there's a lot of heat coming off over here. She likes fire. So the rest is our history. So after getting married in October of 2007, look how young we are. In October of 2007, we got married, and then just 2 months later, she lost her job at the rehab because of chronic pain, and she suffered from migraines. And she had really pivotal positions in this rehab facility. She did the family program 1 week, and then she did the 12-step program the other. And there was no one else to do it, and so they had to let her go. This put her into a deep depression. And obviously she's suffering from the physical pain, but she's also suffering from this emotional pain because she lost her livelihood. She lost her sense of purpose. She lost her identity. And it was really hard. Now, a whole lot of other things happened because, well, I had a teenager in the house. We had a teenager in the house. She lost her job. I had to get another job or two. Eventually, I actually quit teaching and did another job that was, there was a lot of stress. Somewhere in there, my dad lived with us, and River got addicted to opiates. And she had to go back into rehab. So all of this happened in Asheville, when we were living in Asheville. The one thing that I can tell you is that each experience was in our rearview mirror. We'd look at each other and go, wow, if we can get through this, we can just get about through anything. And that's kind of how we felt continually when life would throw another curveball, and we always somehow made it through. And I attribute this to her for two reasons that we were able to do this. First of all, she insisted, and of course I agreed, that we do premarital counseling, which we did, and then we continued it for a while into our marriage. The second thing she did was she said to me early in our relationship, if you want to get married to me or you want to be in a relationship with me, you have to read the Al-Anon book, the blue book, right? Which I did in one weekend. I'm a very good student. And then she also asked me to read some codependency books. So she was preparing me to deal with her, which was great. I can thankfully say then in our later years, hey, how about just take a tour out there for a little bit? Because I can't even hear myself think. Come back to me. In the later years of our marriage, we never wanted to remain angry at one another, which I think was wonderful. Now, you know, the past 3 years, I wasn't always my best being her primary caregiver, and I lost my patience a lot. And let me tell you, she always forgave me. And at this point, I can say that's probably the biggest gift that she gave me in this life of mine, is the gift of forgiveness. Not long after moving, we moved to Transylvania County eventually. I mean, we had our first date here. Of course, we needed to move here. We had our first kiss here, too. That's another story. Not long after moving here, we met Bart and Kate. They're the renters, R-E-N-N-E-R-S, not the renters, like somebody that rents. They're the renters. I do have a renter at home, and then when I say I'm going over to the renters, they're like, the renters? You rent to? Okay, these are the renters. Say hello, renters. Hello, renters. Not renters, okay? Anyway, they were our neighbors 2 pastures over, basically, up on Cantrell Mountain. And it turned out they also attended our congregation. So one winter day, Susan volunteered to take care of infant Cadence so that the rest of us could go sledding. And before you knew it, Susan became their nanny and took care of Cadence and then Gus until COVID hit. Taking care of Cadence and Gus gave her a reason to get up in the morning. The kids and Bart and Kate brought so much light into her life. And they really are her chosen family. You got the family you're born with, and then you have a chosen family. I am in debt to them for basically giving my wife a way to make a difference, to be a part of something as important as raising kids. And really, and honestly, it kept her alive. My biggest regret for her is not being able to see them, nor our own grandkids, or our other kids in our lives, grow up. Oh, the mischief she would have participated in with them. Yeah. I mean, I'm envisioning her taking them to get tattoos and piercings. Yeah, no. Well, I think we're supposed to have some grandkid pictures. There we go. Oh, you recognize those people? Yeah. Well, who was she? She was irreverent, impish, self-deprecating, psychologically aware, sarcastic, terrible with money, introverted, a busyaholic, impatient, beautiful, forgiving, charismatic, and a neat freak. She hated small talk, chit-chat, to the point of actually being rude to people, like my people. Like if I'm talking to somebody and she's standing next to me, she would just be like, okay. She suffered from PTSD, and so many of those behaviors that are associated with PTSD would come out at times. She was a bit arrogant about her knowledge of psychology and counseling. And she loved to diagnose people. I mean, we have the DSM on the bedside table. And if you don't know what that is, it's nothing kinky. Okay. The one thing I really liked about her, especially at this time when she was with me, is that she stood up for herself, as well for anyone she considered without a voice. She adored babies, really adored babies, and would rather be around children than adults. And then most of the time around a dog or a cat than humans. She had a beautiful singing voice and was a good dancer, but you rarely got to experience them. She was a counselor, confidant to many people. Well after her career had ended, she saw the hurt, the trauma, the struggle in others because she had lived it. If you feel comfortable, raise your hand if you think she helped you in some way. Just raise your hand if you think she helped you. Yeah, I mean, I know that there's going to be people sprinkled through. Raise your hand if she made you laugh. I mean, seriously. Yes. Let me tell you, family was important to her. time and circumstance separated her from her niece and nephew. She was so happy to reconnect with them as adults and have the opportunity to get to know them again. We always dreamed of moving to Vermont. Seriously, we did. We never did because she didn't want to be so far away from her mother and the rest of her family. And I felt the same way too. And by the way, I need to give a shout out to Mary, her mother, who is very much alive, as is my mother. They both right now are the same age, 92. Mary will be 93 November 26th. She could not be here for health reasons. So I just want everyone to realize that she really did want to be here, and it was just not possible. She does live in Augusta. She loved being a part of this congregation. She had very positive feelings about certain aspects of Catholicism, some of the rituals and things. But her journey was a bit more eclectic, pulling from all sorts of faith traditions or wisdom, as some people say. I really don't know what she believed in, but I don't think she really knew because she was a skeptic. So I will say that up until she got sick, she was terrified of dying because I guess worried about hell. But in the last year, I can say that it didn't seem to bother her at all. And that makes me happy that she was not afraid to die. She left her mark here by being on the worship team, helping with monthly meal and program night, facilitating and participating in small group ministry, and even speaking here on a Sunday or two. If she was away, if we were away for whatever reason, she would always be like, I've so got to get back to church. So this was a sanctuary for her. She really enjoyed being here. Okay, why I married her. I married her because she had a sense of humor. This woman made me laugh more than anyone else in the world, and I adored her laugh and her smile, and it saddens me that so many of you maybe never had a chance to experience it. I really think she could have been a stand-up comic. I mean, I really do. The second reason I married her was because she liked to play. Frisbee, football, basketball, catch, sled, ride bikes, whatever. Play ball with our dog, Kike, or chase my sister's dog, Keller, around the house. Keller is a little dachshund, deaf and blind. If she was physically able to do it, she would, even if she couldn't do it for very long because of her physical issues, but she would do it. And especially within the last 3 years, she tried to play as much as she could. She was a kid at heart. That explains her connection to children and being so at ease with them. The third reason, so I married her because of her sense of humor, because she likes to play, and the third reason I married her was because she loved being in nature. Oh, well, let's just look at that little precious moment right there. The third reason I married her was because she loved being in nature. Her favorite place to be, other than our home, which she called her sanctuary, was being in nature. Walking on the trails, being in the woods, among the trees, by a waterfall, by a creek, even at the ocean. And she also loved to hug trees and talk to them. She actually talked to trees. A good steward, very good steward, she always picked up litter, no matter what it was or where it was, and I might add how long a hike we had to pull it out of the woods. I was at the beach a couple of weeks ago, and I was picking up some gross stuff at the beach, and I was like, oh, River, really, seriously? Like, no. So I'm going to talk about being queer. When it came to being queer, and that's the best term for us that we like to use, I know she was out and proud within her recovery community, in her jobs, obviously here, anywhere. That really was her activism, to be herself, her genuine, authentic self, to not do those acts of omission that so many LGBTQIA folks do, where you don't tell people that you're married to someone of the same sex, where you don't share with someone that you're transgender, whatever. A highlight of our time together was when we participated in the We Do campaign before same-sex marriage was legal. The idea was to go to the Register of Deeds to request a marriage license, knowing that you were going to be rejected. And we participated in one in November of 2013. And of course, we were rejected. And this was very moving for her. In fact, I remember her getting teary-eyed. And I had participated in a bunch of campaigns as a witness all over North Carolina, and this was kind of her, it's probably her, yeah, it was her first one, because you only request a marriage license in the county where you live. You don't just go to random counties and request them. So I was working in support. So it was interesting that she was so affected by it. And what I know now, in retrospect, is that it's the being treated as less than. It really affected her. Now, on to better things. A year later, we did it again. We requested a marriage license. 27 members and friends from this congregation, as well as some others, came with us to the Register of Deeds, and we became the first same-sex couple to request and to receive a marriage license in this county. Is that? Yeah, seriously. Woohoo! We were not the first to get legally married because we went to the beach. So we went to the Register of Deeds, we went to the beach when it became legal, came back, went to the Register of Deeds, and no one had gotten married the entire week we were gone. No one had requested a marriage license. And this is my idea about why that was. Well, people could be turned down even if it was legal, like the lady in Tennessee who was refusing. And so I think what happened is a lot of couples were afraid to go and be rejected and feel that less than feeling that we did the year prior when it really wasn't legal. So as soon as it hit the paper that we had gotten a marriage license, I mean, all these people showed up the next day, and those people got married. We got married a week later. So I'm going to talk about her identity, on the queer spectrum. When Cadence was 3, maybe 4, she would often ask Susu, "Susu, are you a boy or are you a girl?" Well, because, we categorize, as children, we categorize things, black, white, blue, red, tall, short. Well, Susu was so great with her response because what she would say was not an answer. She'd go, "I don't know, what do you think?" Or maybe, because remember, boy or girl, so maybe. So, or sometimes she'd just like, "I don't know." But I think really and truthfully is that she identified as non-binary, and she finally came to like that term. She's like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's not that I'm really all girl, and it's not that I'm really all boy or feel like a boy. I'm just sort of in between." Pronouns she, her, hers. So during this time of awakening, she had decided that she wanted to change her name, and she had always wanted to change her name. Okay, raise your hand if your name is Susan. Okay. Well, there's about 11 in this congregation. And then there's a bunch where we live, and there were a bunch in her high school. In fact, that's why her high school school friends called her Freeman. They didn't call her Susan, they called her Freeman, okay? So she began thinking about changing her name, but she wanted to wait until her mother died. Well, her mother is still living, obviously, and she ended up, when she got diagnosed, we were on our way to Duke, and she's throwing out some really, well, I knew she wanted a nature name. She was like, "How about Tree?" I'm like, okay, if you were tall, maybe. How about Stone? And I'm like, no. So Pebble, no. So anyway, she came up with River, and I was like, yes. And River became. Now, she's fine. She was fine being called Susan as well. So I always tried to explain to people. I just code switch. I go, oh, River, Susan, depending on who I'm talking to, Susu. And she was fine with that. She wasn't militant about her name or even her gender identity. So I'm really wrapping up. What did I learn from her? I'm just going to go real fast. Feelings are valid, even if they seem over the top, illogical. Share your feelings. See how it all tied together? I didn't even know what you were doing. Let go. Let go of perfection. This is what I learned, okay? This is me, because everyone knows I'm a control freak. Still am. But I am trying to be in recovery, okay? So let go of perfection and control. Let go of being right, because she would always say, being happy is better than being right. I know you would say that, says my brother. Bringing up old stuff and issues is not helpful. Live in today, change today. And talk less. Talk less. Listen more. Repeat over and over. We would go in the woods, and I'd just be like, blah, 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 blah. And then she would just go, could you just not talk? I mean, she was in nature. I mean, I get it. Yeah, so I'd just be like, okay. So the other three things. No one is a mind reader, so tell your people what you need. If they can't be there for you, they aren't your people. Things are just things, so declutter your life. She just got rid of everything. And meanwhile, I've amassed so much stuff, storage, yeah. And the final thing, the most important thing, kids are everything. Foster your relationships with them. So I've got 3 closing stories, and we'll just bust a move over and have some fun. A while back, our neighbor planted a redbud tree. My neighbor, Terry. River also had a caregiver that would give her a chance to garden. Somehow, River put these two together, I mean, this is within the last year or two, and thought that she had bought a redbud. And she'd tell me, I need to go plant that redbud. And I'm like, what redbud is she talking about? And then I finally was like, okay, she just has it in her mind. And she's like, oh, I need to water the redbud. I'm like, okay, well, and so I finally realized I just needed to play along, right? So she never did get to plant a redbud. But 2 weeks ago, it finally happened. A lovely gift from a friend is now in front of our house. And that is a black pearl. If you know anything about Susan, her favorite color is black, although it doesn't look black, but those leaves are super dark, dark burgundy. And so that is a wonderful memorial to her. And I did sprinkle ashes, and so did my friend Susan. Okay, second story. This is all stuff that's just happened. In the days leading up to her death, I had encouraged River to try to contact me after she died. And I said, but it can't be butterflies and birds. That is just too obvious. And I said, it has to be your spirit animal, which is the wolf. And mine's the dolphin. And I don't know if she understood, because this is really when she wasn't very verbal. So last Sunday, I went to go buy a spoon rest that my sister broke my spoon rest. So I had to go get a spoon rest at Mud Dabbers Pottery. And my renter, that is with a T, who lives in our lower level, I don't say basement, I say lower level. Oh, okay, well, that just took my punchline. Anyway, Nick works at Mud Dabbers now. And I was razzing him and giving him a hard time, okay? And he came up near me, and I was over where all these clay pendants were. And he said, I'm watching you. Like I was going to steal something, right? So I laughed out loud because I really did deserve it. But see, I had been focused on this pendant that had a nice tree, a river, mountains, and birds. But as he told me, I'm watching you, there was a pendant that was turned backwards. And I flipped it over, and it was the wolf. And it's like with blue eyes and her silvery white hair. So anyway, I consider that communication from the other side. I don't know what you believe in, but I believe it. As many of you know, this is the last story, and we're going to get out of here. I promise, okay, I will try to talk less after this service. No comments from the peanut gallery. Okay, as many of you may know, we took a trip out west this summer because I knew it would be the last trip that we would ever take together. And we were in a teardrop camper, and we made it all the way to Yosemite. And had a fantastic time, met some family there. We, one day, went to Mariposa Grove, which is where the sequoias are at Yosemite. And remember, tree hugger wife, we were at the California sequoia, which is the one that you see that they drive through. You know, it's carved out, and you can drive through it. And so we were at the California sequoia, and my niece's husband, Christian, was with us, and I said, why don't you get up and hug the tree? Well, you know, a part of the tree. And she did, okay? And there she is. As she did this, I asked her, well, what would you say to this giant tree if you knew that it could understand what you were saying? And she paused, and very slowly, because her speaking obviously was very slow, and she said, I'm so glad you're here. And I wish you could have been here. Well, I hope you're here for a very long time. I think that's how she said it. So she said, I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you're here for a really long time. And she had a huge smile on her face. And I remember Christian said, well said, River, well said. I am so glad that Susan, River, Susu, Freeman was amongst us in some way. You know, making us crack up, helping us with our struggles, caring for us, just being her authentic self, playing with us. And I wish that she could have been here among us for a whole lot longer. Thank you. Now, we are going to do what I'm calling a string ritual. I named it that. It's a string ritual. You guys all of you have a string somewhere. If you don't, the ushers, does anybody not have a string? Because we definitely have string. Does anybody need a string? Everybody got string? Everybody got string? Okay, good. So, at the beginning of the service, you obviously got this length of string, and I'd like this string to represent the connection that you made with Susan, with Susu, River, or perhaps with me. And by being here in this sanctuary or watching live stream, we're all connected. Let this real string, oh man, I didn't even know what color I picked, that's nice. Look how that matches. Let this real string be a reminder that there is an invisible string connecting you to your loved ones and to their loved ones, and so on, until the entire planet is a matrix of powerful love and support. Distance, circumstance, and even death do not separate us. So, what would you do with your string? My ideas is to wear it by getting somebody to help you wrap it all the way around and then tie it, obviously not too tight, and then just have this as a memory for the next however long. This is wool and cotton string that's usually for socks. Okay, so that's one idea. You could also just make a little tiny necklace, however you want to. You could hang it on your rearview mirror. You could just ball it up and put it in your pocket. You do what you'd like to do, but just remember this connection. But since we are talking about connection, we are going to sing her favorite song that we sing here in this congregation that many people here know. It's called Blue Boat Home. So, Blue Boat Home speaks to the great expanse of the universe and its beauty. and we are all travelers on a beautiful blue boat sailing through the cosmos together, connected on our spiritual journey. And then after this is done, Reverend Bob is going to close out with a benediction up on the screen. So stand as you're willing or able. Oh my gosh. Hey, come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains. Link up. Far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. You did a good job, by the way. You did a good job, Light. You really did. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder. You know where that is? The starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. Come on, come up here. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the brave winds urging me on, breathe the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. Here we go. I was born in the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat. Oh, I love that.
Thank you, everyone, for your words, your presence, and your music. As we come to the end of this service, Elizabeth has invited people here to take a vial of ashes, if you feel comfortable, with a purpose in mind. Purpose is we take Susu River with us to the beach, to the woods, someplace in nature that we're going, and scatter the ashes so that they are everywhere in nature. Baskets are at either exit. And now, with string around our wrists, I close with a poem by Rossiter Worthington Raymond. Life is eternal, and love is immortal, and death is only a horizon, and a horizon is nothing save the limit of our sight. No eulogy can convey all that was her life. No stone monument will epitomize who she was. No tribute is ever going to capture her spirit. No history will do her justice. Only you can do right by her. And you can do so only by sharing your memories and stories, and most importantly, by living so that others will remember the best of her in how you go about your life. No higher tribute can any human being receive. May it be so.